Marco, thanks so much for sitting down with me. Really appreciate it. We saw earlier this year the EU Commission come out with a new law proposal for plant reproductive material. And of course, there are in there several impacts also for the vegetable sector. Can you share a bit what you think will the impact be of the new proposal?
Well, basically, there are 3 points of concern that the vegetable sector has. First of all, VSCU, so value for sustainable cultivation and use, which is new for vegetables. That will lead to a very intense pressure on how we test our varieties. And if you then look at the specific vegetable business and the many segments that we are selling our varieties in, and also the small quantities that we are doing, we are really unlike field crops where VCU is already in place for quite some years. And with this VSCU for vegetables, we run the risk that we increase heavily the administrative burden, that we limit ourselves in testing varieties under the appropriate, very detailed conditions that are applicable to vegetables. And we also run the risk of increased cost. In the end, this will lead probably to a higher burden for small and medium enterprises, and it will also lead to a decrease of varieties that will be brought forward for listing. That is a concern, VSCU. The second one is marketing in advance of listing. The vegetable sector always had the possibility to test and to sell specific quantities prior to official registration. And that allowed us to bring resistant varieties, varieties contributing to sustainability as quickly as possible to the market, anticipating to circumstances and high needs, and hence also reducing the need for crop protection products and or lower yields, acceptance of lower yields. So if we lose that opportunity, we will be slower in bringing that material to the market. We will be slower in anticipating to all kinds of environmental circumstances, and that is not in the benefit of anybody. The third concern is the definition of marketing, and then specifically related to import, because as the legislation is written today, vegetable companies, or basically all, I have to say all PRM materials should comply with all the legislation prior to import in the EU. And that means we are not able anymore to import a raw material which we have produced outside of the EU, which we normally bring into the EU for quality control, for further upgrading, and for marketing and sale. And if that is not corrected in the legislation, the European Union will lose its central hub function for vegetables, where we are definitely a leader worldwide in. So these are the major concerns that we have.
Yeah, massive concerns, I would say.
Absolutely.
I was attending the panel discussions on this very topic, and there was a great deal of concern among the vegetable seed companies. You mentioned as one of the big concerns VSCU, where sustainability comes in the picture. But of course, everybody talks about sustainability. It's a very vague concept. Not sure if there is a real clear definition, but very specifically on vegetable variety testing, how would you define sustainability, and how can we test for that?
If you look at how to define sustainability, I think this is already the part where the challenge begins. The most obvious thing you can think of is disease resistance. Secondly, higher yield, drought tolerance, heat tolerance, but even things like a higher content of nutrients, processability. So all characteristics that could deceive consumers to consume more vegetables could be considered as sustainable. Now, how are you going to test those things? And even for certain diseases, it's really difficult to get validated tests in place. We are debating about tomato brown rugose virus already for a couple of years, and it will still take a while before we have a validated test. Mm-hmm. So in the framework of VSCU, how are we going to bridge that period? As long as we are not having validated tests, what are we going to do? Mm-hmm. And who is then going to assess whether something is fit for purpose, fit for registration? Yeah. But also things like field tolerance against certain diseases or heat and drought tolerance. I don't have a clue how you are going to test that, and who is going to decide whether your varieties are good enough to go to market. Exactly.
The big risk, and you alluded to that already, that certain varieties which are brilliant and meeting all consumers' demands under normal current circumstances would no longer pass the test because they don't meet one of the sustainability criteria. That's a huge pity.
That is a pity, and in fact also not contributing to the diversity that the European Commission is striving for and the seed sector at large is striving for. And it's also not contributing to what we have as a mission to offer farmers and growers freedom of choice when it comes to their variety selection. And that is, in fact, an interesting thing, which hopefully still can be repaired.
Another thing that I wanted to discuss with you, Marco, is the influx of heterogeneous material. There's a push to allow that and to lower the bar for uniformity. Now it is a bit depending on species, 98%, 99%, very high level. So the farmer knows what he gets and the grower knows what vegetable variety he's getting. If we release those requirements, the uniformity requirement, the farmer no longer knows what he gets. How can we match that with sustainability?
Yeah, that's a complicated one, because that material, that heterogeneous material, will not be, as far as we understand it now, will not be tested against those sustainability criteria. So that material will enter the market, and farmers will have to deal with it. And that material might not always be contributing to sustainability, right? It I think, contributes to diversity, which is a good thing. Yep. But also diversity of operators, but it might not be contributing to sustainability. So in that sense, I think farmers also need to be careful in making their choices, and they have to make sure that they are well informed. Absolutely.
Lots of work ahead of you and ahead of Euroseeds, yes, of course. Thank you for sitting down with me, Marcel.
Okay, you're welcome.